Hello, welcome to Dynasty Degens, episode 18. I am Nerd Boy. Today's episode, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're talking about the come up. So our guest tonight really just kind of came up from the ground up and started in the C2C space. And we're really excited to have him on. But before we get into that, I'm going to introduce the guys. So today I have two guys joining me. As always, Jagger. Jagger, how you doing tonight, brother?
Not so bad. How about yourself, sir?
Doing well, man. I'm excited about what you have going on. You have a lot of stuff popping off on the Twitter sphere, and you're with football guys now, and you're doing a lot of fun stuff with a lot of videos. And I'm pumped up for what you have coming on. And I know that you have the show coming up too next week, or maybe
week two.
Week two. Okay, nice. Yeah. And then we have the host of Dynasty Degens with us, Todd Vincent. Todd, how you doing?
I'm good. Good. How are you?
Doing well. Yeah, we're excited tonight. Tonight we have the co-founder of Campus to Canton. He does a show, RSP, with Matt Waldman, somebody that really is a voice in the C2C space. I love seeing him work on Twitter. He's sassy. He's definitely screaming to sell Quinn yours right now. And that's a good voice to listen to. But without further ado, I introduce to you Felix Sharpe. Felix, how you doing?
Mike, Todd, Jagger, thank you for having me. Anytime someone is willing to lend me their platform to spout my nonsense, I appreciate it. I don't know why you would do that, but thank you for having me.
We really appreciate you coming on, man. I know. We've been branching out. So we had the Dynasty Degens podcast that just launched yesterday. Previously, we kind of had a mixed blend on this pod, but I think we're going to more so concentrate on the Dynasty side and let the Dynasty Degens kind of take over. And that's Todd and also Noah. Noah's on that side as well. So I'm excited to kind of branch out and do that stuff. And, we're really happy to have you on and let us kind of pick your brain and listen to how you come up and how you kind of came into the space and everything. But before
I've had several conversations with Todd and more recently Noah, so fully endorse what it is that they're doing.
Yeah, Noah, I actually met Noah. He came on to a Devi. I did like an intro to Devi League and I put it on Twitter. And he joined it and he had no experience doing Devi at all. And I was kind of answering questions as we went and we were trying to educate the guys as they were going. It was just kind of like a beginner league. And he said that he joined Campus to Canton and he was picking your brain about every pick and his team was nice. It came out real good. Like he's definitely got that good Devi side coming. So he looks good over there.
That's good. That's what we want. We want more people in the space, more new people, and more people succeeding and knowing what it is that they're doing. So, for any of your audience that has questions about Devi or Campus to Canton or CFF, feel free at Sharpe Review on Twitter, Sharpe with an E. Feel free to hit me up.
Yeah. And I know I hear so many stories about people reaching out to Felix. He's very receptive about DMs. He's, great with answering questions. He's got that Discord too, if you want to hop in there. So he's a good person to reach out to when it comes to introducing yourself to a Devi or a C2C league. But before we kind of talk about Devi, C2C, and all that good stuff, an icebreaker that we usually jump into is favorite TV show. But when I talked to you, you told me you don't watch TV, man. You don't watch TV. You probably watch like Bluey and all those kids shows every once in a while. But
I
not
definitely
a TV
have
guy.
some Bluey. But no, I don't watch television. I was trying to think of the last television show that I watched, and I honestly could not think of a television show. I do have characters that I like.
Yeah.
But television, it's been a long time since I've watched the show.
Yeah, you had told me that your favorite character, I think, of all time is Heath Ledger's Joker, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Why so serious? Yes, Christopher Nolan with those two characters, both the Joker and Bane, two of my favorite characters. If you actually think about it, I mean, they're in some respects, I don't want to say that they're the good guys, but they're more equitable than Batman is. Batman is just an enabler. Think about the police corruption and political corruption going on during the day. Where's Bruce Wayne, the $1 billion boy then? You know, at the very least, Bane and the Joker are bad guys to everyone at all times. But you know, Bruce Wayne is just an enabler. But no, very intelligent characters who are both Bane being brutal and Heath Ledger's Joker just being intelligent and just loving chaos. I think, I definitely love the portrayals of those two characters by Tom Hardy and Heath Ledger, respectively.
I know we got to talk ball, but like I can't move past this. Like, what do you do? Do you just like only are like watching ball, or do you read, or you?
I do read. I do read. I'm actually finishing R.J. Young's book on the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921 right now. So I shout out to R.J. But I mean, during the off season when basketball is on, I'm pretty much going back and turning on college football games that I did not get the opportunity to watch that year. There's 133 FBS teams. You can't watch everything. And so, I mean, I have my kids too, but I'm also just I'm either getting ready for a podcast or trying to make a YouTube video or updating my rankings. Those are the things that I do in my free time. I love stand-up comedy. So sometimes I'll have, Nate Bargatze or I think Tom Segura is super underrated as a comedian. I love Louis C.K. too. I know that that's politically controversial to say that, but he'd be on my Mount Rushmore. I'm going to go see Dave Chappelle later next month, actually. So, but television show, like I wouldn't even, if you told me like what's the most popular television show right now, I would not. I mean, like all of us, I don't know. I've never seen all of us, The Sopranos, The Wire. I've never seen a single episode of any of these shows.
The Wire? No way, man. Me and Jagger are constantly referencing The Wire. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd even get a reference in our Discord. But Jagger actually does stand up, or he did stand up. That's how he kind of was introduced to podcasting in the first place.
Yeah, it's like a lot of my TikToks and shorts. I just write them like stand-up bits. So it's.
I was gonna say Jagger's giving off some very strong Childish Gambino vibes. So that would fit, because Donald Glover obviously, started in stand-up. I remember Donald Glover when he was with the I forgot what his comedy troupe was back on YouTube. But for those who don't know,
oh yeah, I do remember. Yeah,
I mean did you see the movie Mystery Team? Did you see that movie?
Yeah,
with them. Yeah, I mean like I'm talking about way back in the day. Derek Comedy. That's
what it was. Yeah, Derek
look up
Comedy.
Derek Comedy on YouTube. Yeah,
and look up the Spelling Bee one. That's like one of the best sketches ever.
One little bit about comedy is when I lived in New York for about 10 years, and we went to this little comedy show on a Friday night, and we didn't really know anybody. It was just kind of like a stand-up bit, come and go, open mic situation. And then, like little tiny spot, very small. In comes Dave Chappelle and does like a 2.5 hour bit, like here comes Dave Chappelle. There's like 40 people in the place, and it was the most chill, laid back set, and he's just sitting there smoking cigarettes and just talking, and it was awesome, man. I got to shake his hand and talk to him for a little while, and he's just a down to earth, good dude that just loves what he does, and he's not doing it for money or anything like that. He just enjoys the art of stand up, and I love that.
Well, since we're here, let's sit here for a second. I love to go to New York. New York is one of my favorite places to go, but I go to Greenwich Village so that I can go to the Comedy Cellar. And the Comedy Cellar is known for people just dropping in. As a matter of fact, I think Dave just dropped in on Sunday. Dave and George, I forgot his last name. Anyway, but the last time I was there, Michael Che from Saturday Night Live, dropped in unannounced and was terrible, but dropped in nonetheless.
Man. That's
if you are a comedy fan, you got to go to the Comedy Cellar in New York. Mr. Dorman is the owner. Val and Liz are the two managers there. Tell them I said hello.
Yeah, will do. So before we get deep into how you got started in the space and how you came up, I know that you're a lawyer by trade. Can you tell us what kind of lawyer you are, or is it just, are you criminal? Are you
I mean, like, is it like top secret, like a secret agent? Like,
I don't know. I don't know what you make public and what you don't. I don't want to put your business out there. That's what I just, I don't want to
That's
assume that
classified.
you talk about all this stuff because you're Felix, the C2C guy. So I don't know if you want to be Felix, the lawyer guy too.
No, I am a practicing attorney. I spent 6.5 years at a big law firm here in Louisville, Kentucky, that's based in Cincinnati. I'm a civil litigator, so basically defending big companies from personal injury suits. So if you see like the lawyers on buses and on TV saying, if you're injured, call me. I'm the guy that's on the opposite side of those guys. So yeah, but right now, so I've spent 6.5 years doing that as outside counsel at a law firm. And now I do it for an insurance company. So I say I used to be a pilot and now I'm more of an air traffic controller, to make the comparison. Like, I don't go to court anymore every day and all that kind of stuff and take depositions and, pin people in with cross-examination anymore. But I do it from a distance and kind of direct strategy for litigation now.
Yeah, that's cool. And I was wondering how that translates to fantasy football. Like, how do the skills that you acquired, through going through law school and all that good stuff, like, how does that prepare you for entering this space? And what kind of skills did you translate over?
Yeah, I think in 3 ways. I think that as a lawyer, you know how to research something to come up with a position that is backed by, some support. Now, I do a lot of spouting off just opinions on my show on the Debbie Debate, but you do learn how, and Todd raises his eyebrows over there. Like, yep, that's true. But you learn kind of how to research and to kind of support your position. I would say, so that's one way, research. The other way is communication. That's all law school is you're learning how to communicate and practicing law. If there's one skill that you're learning, it's how to communicate. And then the third way is I don't take things personally. Like, things don't ruffle my feathers. So like, I don't have a problem being bold because I'm not, what's the worst that could happen? People are going to come at me on Twitter they're going to type their little comments or whatever on there, so if I put a video up on YouTube about how Quinn Ewers is a sell and I get the whole Texas fan base talking about how this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, it doesn't bother me. I don't have the feelings associated with the negative comments. So I would say just one, being bold, how to research and how to communicate are probably the ways that it's helped the most.
Doing stand-up has done the same thing. Like, I'm an iron. Like, you can, like, doing comedy, and I've even done sketch comedy and posted it to Reddit. If you want to talk about getting just annihilated, Reddit is like top 5 experience. Like it's so hard to hurt me on Twitter. You gotta really try.
I love this line from Ratatouille. There's the Anton Iago at the end. Jagger, you know what I'm talking about? At the end, there's the speech at the end where the critic, he says, he talks about how a critic's job is really easy and how the most mediocre piece of content or art is more meaningful than the criticism deeming it so. And I love that line from this prophetic movie about a rat or something. So if you are doing content out there in any form or art in any form, keep going. F the critics.
So he has watched Ratatouille. Mark that down.
Yeah, I got a couple down right here. We got, any Christopher Nolan film, Ratatouille. I'm gonna say he's probably seen like Toy Story, at least maybe Toy Story.
How old are you? I mean, I saw Toy Story when I was like 8 or 9 years old. Whenever it came out. Now all the fourth one. Yep.
No, we're probably I'm 36, so we're probably around the same age.
What month were you born?
December.
Oh, so I'm 2 months older. Well, you're 36. I'm about to turn 36. You got it. You're the oldest.
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely one of the eldest in this. Well, I don't know about Todd.
You're definitely the oldest.
Todd is like a vampire, man. I don't know how old Todd is. He could be like 45. He could be 31. I don't know. He won't tell us either.
I'll be 45 in October.
36.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like I just turned 31, so like my back hurts now. But
Yeah,
that's more about
I know.
football and powerlifting that did that. So
Yeah, and I have no knees and all that good stuff, but that's from football too. Um, so Felix, we want to know how you got started into creation. Like, how did you get into just even the idea of starting Campus to Canton, and how did that all come about? Like, I'm sure you played and you were into it, but stepping into that content creation and that overall, just, hey, I'm going to make Campus to Canton and we're going to go do that. Like, how did that all just start up for you?
Well, I definitely didn't have the idea to start Campus to Canton. That was all Austin and Colin originally. But I would say that my content creation started probably in college. I mean, I don't even think YouTube was around yet, or it was relatively new. Somebody can check me on that. I graduated in 2009. I bet you YouTube was around since 2005 or so. Anyway, I put videos and stuff, silly videos and stuff on YouTube. And then when I graduated college, my best friend, who became my best friend, who I worked with, we were both Lions fans. And pretty much in the fall, we would get to work. And I would spend from 8 a.m. to 12 to noon, if not longer, just talk. And Jason, my friend Jason, he's the opposite of me. He does not. He likes to speak only when necessary. So I would just talk his ear off about the Lions, pretty much actually every single day. And I don't even know if it wasn't just Monday after games. And then when I left, I actually left Michigan in 2015. And then during the pandemic, I think, or maybe, yeah, during the pandemic, started Debbie Debate with, well, I was writing before then, writing a little bit about prospects. I would always read the RSP, and I would email Matt before the RSP came out and just say, this is what I'm seeing on these players. And he was always responsive. And we would talk about players like Ramondre Stevenson and Carson Strong. And I mean, that's more recently. I mean, that's probably went back to 2015 when I sent him my first email. Anyway, always, I played a little bit in college. When I say played, I was on the practice squad for 2 Division II national championship teams. Brandon Carr of the Dallas Cowboys, who had that catch on Odell Beckham Jr., or Odell had that catch on him. That was one of my teammates. My head coach, Chuck Martin, is now the head coach at Miami of Ohio. Anyway, I've always had this just love for the game, and I've expressed that in different ways growing up. First it was playing it, then it was writing about it, and now then it became doing what I'm doing with C2C. So we started the Debbie Debate podcast. I want to say it was either 2020 or 2019 with Austin and Matt. And through my relationship with Austin, they're like, we're starting. I had played in Campus to Canton, the format at that point, I think just one league. And then from I don't know, the summer of 2021 till the summer of 2020 to at some point in 2020, Austin and Colin mentioned that they were doing Campus to Canton and invited me to join. And we launched in March of 2021. And here we are in August of 2023. And I'm talking to you three.
Yeah. And it's blown up. Obviously, you are essentially the voice of C2C. I think when people hear the format C2C, they automatically think Campus to Canton, and I think that's obviously just great branding. But it's more than that. It's what you do. It's how you built it. But personally, before you got into C2C, was there progression? Like, did you go into redraft and you're like, oh, I like redraft, and you're like, or was it just like, I know Todd, for instance, like he just skipped Debbie altogether and went right to C2C. Like he didn't even do the whole Debbie thing. He went right into it. So I don't know what your progression was like, but I'm always interested to hear about how people graduate or if they just go right into it.
Yeah, I remember my first interaction with fantasy football. I remember being an intern, but sometime in college, must have been 2006 or 7, somewhere around there. I didn't really know what it was, and I joined a mock draft on either ESPN or Yahoo. And I remember I took Willis McGahee over Brian Westbrook, and everybody, the whole chat group like shouted me down like that was the dumbest thing ever to take Willis McGahee over Brian Westbrook. I think I didn't know enough about fantasy football to realize that there was even picks beyond like the first round of that mock draft. So I just made that pick or whatever, and then I clicked out of the X. And then later I got the email showing me what my draft was. And so I played some, redraft after that, and then obviously, evolved to the Dynasty Bug because that involves more prospect evaluation. But I'm just like Todd, like I've never played in like a traditional Devy league. My first quote unquote Devy league was a campus to canton league where we just went straight full college. And it was a challenge at first, but I mean, a challenge that I openly welcomed. I mean, I love the sport. So, being bad at it, I'll get like my first 2 picks in my first campus to canton league were Journey Brown and Spencer Rattler. Didn't turn out great. But I'm still in that league, and it's still a whole lot of fun. And the failure has been part of the journey, and part of the exciting thing about it is like, is getting some of these long shot calls right, and sometimes you get them wrong. But I mean, we get our fair share right too. But it's it's kind of like golf, golf is a constant struggle, and because of the turnover in college football, I have to update my rankings every single year. Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen ain't staying at the top of my rankings for the next 5 years, Now, Caleb Williams and Drake May, I lose them next year. So I have to figure out who's next in college football, and that constant challenge gives me something to do. This is why I probably don't watch TV, because I'm, this player turnover that I have to keep track of. There's 133 FBS teams, more than 10,000, football players that might have an impact on Saturdays. So it's a lot to cover, but that's the fun of it. That's the fun of it, is that we get so many names. I mean, Todd is a big fan of like Jerion Dickey at Oregon. I'm a fan of his too, but like just to see the progression of a player like that, and to see other people tout seeing the same things or similar things about a player, you're trying to pull the needle in a haystack in college football, but we've gotten pretty good at pulling needles. So I don't even remember what the question was, but yeah. You're muted.
I'm muted. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's okay, man. We like getting people on rants and just talking on this pod, because ultimately it is a guest pod. I want to hear about you and your story and why you got in the space and what you love about this and all that. So it's good to get on those rants, and whatever question gets you going is cool with me. And it doesn't have to be something you remember, it's just get lost in it, man. But Todd is somebody I picked my brain, and somebody I wanted on the show because, I am into Devy, I'm into C2C, but I'm not the guy you're going to ask, like, if you're on the clock in round 52, like who your guy is, like who's the sleeper in the 52nd round. But Todd is the guy that I would ask on our crew. And I mostly wanted him on here because this is his first podcast that he's doing with Dynasty Degens. And I wanted him to kind of get a firsthand glimpse of what it's like to start from the ground up, like what it's like to get into the space, because he's the lover of C2C. You love C2C. So it's just nice listening to you talk about, how you got into it and how you grew your brands. But I think what I was more interested in was, like, I know you guys started around that time. What was the process? Like, how did it start? The pod started, and then you guys, when did you just decide to do the website? Because we have our website coming along right now, and it's like, we don't know. It's very interesting to hear a timeline, because I just feel like the website is so much work and so much effort, and I think it's never going to be right. So when did you feel like you had that product nailed and you were like, it's coming on and we're going to run this out?
Well, first, as far as the website goes, I would tell you, don't let perfect be the enemy of progress. So at some point you're going to have to launch it, but we had the same issue, if I could speak to that. So if I had to guess, I would say that we knew who the group was that were starting and developing the website in November of 2020. And we obviously didn't launch until March 1st of 2021. So Colin and Austin were kind of ready to go. And we were like, no, this isn't right. No, this isn't right. This isn't, this is not right. And then we launched in March of 2021. And guess what? We redesigned the whole website exactly 1 year later. So we were holding it up. But the process, what it went through was, like I said earlier, Austin and Colin had the initial idea. They were already doing the Campus Life and Canton Bound podcast themselves, and Austin was doing the Debbie Debate podcast with us. And we all obviously had played C2C, saw that there was a need in the market for this type of information. And Colin had enough insight to go ahead and purchase the domain names and the Twitter handles before, well before the group was actually kind of already finalized. So that was a stroke of his genius. But yeah, I can't even remember what the first version of the site actually looked like, but it looked like, it's still, the website still isn't, it's not like ESPN or DLF or Fantasy Pros or anything like that. But anyway, I think we have been strategic in some respect every step of the way. So we had a team, we had a launch date. We all, tweeted about the website at the same time. We invested money. Like we gave away DraftKings gift cards for people signing up. That was money that came straight out of my pocket, just investing in it to get people to sign up. We knew that we had a good thing with how deep our rankings went. And then Jarek's tools. A lot of people think rankings are subjective. Fine. If you want objective metrics and data, you can go to all the tools that Jarek has. Well, it started with Jarek, and now we have tools from Tim, and Injustice has an IDP tool, and we have athleticism comparison tools for college players. If you want to see who Marvin Harrison Jr. compares to athletically, you can. So we started in March of 2021, and we just kind of, I think Dwight, Chris Moxley, and Matt Nighthawk on Twitter, they all joined us. Even we said, we might be able to pay you at some point, but we don't have any money to pay you now. And like they were like, yeah, we're going to roll with you. And so when we actually could pay them, we did. And when we could afford to give them raises for the content that they create, we did. And we invested every dollar back into, to redesigning the website, to bringing on additional people, to, buying a MacBook so we could use OUS or whatever that was called at one point. I don't even remember if we used it, whatever that was called. This microphone right here. This stuff like that. We just invested and we still have. We've invested every single dollar into the website, and we've tried to show appreciation to our team members. But yeah, I don't really know any one thing to point to. We kind of started, and we're still trying to figure it out. I like to say that we're in the sky. We're in the sky trying to build this airplane at the time. So we're nowhere near done, or to be honest, I don't even know that we've even started. We're in the middle of it right now, and everything you see is us just trying to figure it out. We have no idea what it is that we're doing. But we're just taking actions every day and just trying to get better and better.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to say, like, like your tools or whatnot, because a lot of this is new to me, because like I'm the only guy in here. I'm a pretty much a dynasty purist. Like that's what I stick to. And then besides like the whole comedy front, like my actual thing that I do is rookie evaluation. So like stuff that you have on there, like the rookie comp tools and stuff like that, that's even valuable to like dynasty players, you know. Like you might not have to roster these guys, but you already get like a good look at players ahead of time. And I guess like another thing, I had a question, like because like now I'm like super um super intrigued, and you're doing your job at like pushing the brand or whatever, is that like I'm always big on uh you know, when you talk about like the subjective and objective data that you can look at, I don't think we talk about like how players are used in college and then what that can mean in the NFL, you know, for instance, like the simple air raid, and then we have like what the air raid is now in the NFL, you know, like a Tennessee offense is going to blow up for like a college fantasy or C2C if you have like Jalen Hyatt or whatever. But like it's a cautionary tale for some of those players as they transition to the NFL. So I wanted to know, like, is that something in the future? Is that something that you have now? How would you package that?
Yeah, I don't know that there's an objective way to say, hey, Jalen Hyatt never faced press coverage. Watch out for how he's used in the NFL, because we just don't know if he can do it. That really comes from our evaluations. Or if you say, Hendon Hooker has these particular reads that aren't really similar to what he would do in the NFL. Bailey Zappi was just cut today. Zappi was just cut today. He threw for nearly 6,000 yards his last season at Western Kentucky. Oh, by the way, his number one wide receiver, Jareth Stearns, who nearly had 2,000 yards receiving, he didn't even make an NFL roster out of camp. I think he was signed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, the only way, let's just keep going. Rondale Moore at Purdue. Yes, he has an excellent season, that 1,300-yard freshman season, but he was used around the line of scrimmage, and we didn't really see him deployed down the field. We don't really know if an NFL team is going to use him the way the Miami Dolphins used Jarvis Landry as an extension of the running game. All of those little things, I think, are just things that we talk about on Devy Debate, things that we talk about on Campus Life. You'll notice right now that the big, and Todd, you'll know this conversation about Luther Burden. Luther Burden at Missouri is used very similarly to how Rondale Moore was used at Purdue. Now, Luther Burden is 5'11", 205 pounds, a lot bigger than Rondale Moore, but still the usage is the same. Laviska Shenault, same way, 6'2", 220 pounds. But when we get to the red zone, they put him at Wildcat quarterback. They didn't throw fades to him. They didn't let him return punts. You know, so did he have an issue with ball tracking? No, they used him around the line of scrimmage on manufactured touches. So I don't know that there's an objective way to say, hey, this player is not used in a way that translates well to the Tylen. Let's go to Tylen Wallace. Tylen Wallace, 5'11", contested catch guy. I was like, this guy doesn't have a chance. He doesn't have a chance. He's a great college wide receiver, but there's no space in the NFL for a wide receiver who relies on contested catches when he's 5'11". I mean, I'll probably think of some other examples here as I'm going along, but yeah, those are the things. Those like, how does this player translate to the NFL? Those are conversations we're having literally every single day. I mean, we're gonna. If you watch college football, you saw Zachariah Branch on Saturday in week 0 against San Jose State, had 2 touchdowns, a kickoff return touchdown. He caught a screen for a touchdown, ADOT like 3.3. Manufactured touchdown. So we're going to talk about that. Yes, we saw how explosive he was, but for us to feel comfortable, we want him to be deployed a little bit further down the line of scrimmage, or he's just, Tavon Austin. He's just Rondale Moore. He's just one of these guys. So those are
every year. Kadarius Toney, that's another one I think is.
Kadarius Toney is another good one. I'm pretty sure Kadarius Toney switched positions. He might have started off at quarterback or something like that, if I can't remember. But another guy that was used around the line of scrimmage, and I think Kadarius Toney would be fine if he could stay healthy. He just can't seem to stay healthy. But these are conversations that we're having every day, all year on the Campus to Canton podcast feed. So. Everybody who listens to this isn't going to play C2C, but I mean, if you listen to us, we're having those conversations about who's the wide receiver 3 in this class, because you got, Emeka Ibuka and Marvin Harrison Jr., but there's not really an established guy after that. Or who's the quarterback 3? Is there going to be a tight end as effective as Luke Musgrave or Kyle Pitts? Like, we're always looking for those questions, because in C2C, we have to answer them in the affirmative. Like, we have to go find those guys and get them on our rosters, because eventually our college team becomes our NFL team, which makes the format so great, because you really have to wear that evaluator hat. So I have to make a determination. Jagger, I'll just give you an example. I had Jalen Hyatt in a lot of places coming out of the South Carolina, North Carolina area. That's where he came from. We knew that he was one of the fastest players in college. We had been waiting for him to break out. He finally did. What did I do when he broke out? I traded him for Barian Brown, because I was waiting for him, and I believe Barian Brown has a higher ceiling. Is that going to play out? Well, I don't know, but call my shot. So we have to wear those evaluator hats, and it's a good example, because I did that with Jalen Hyatt. I'm like, all right, speed guy in a gimmicky Josh Heupel system, get out of here. Let me get the guy who has a higher ceiling in Barian Brown. I could be wrong. I've been wrong a lot, but no, that's what makes the format fun.
Yeah, like I said, you're speaking to the choir there, because that's what I'm always button heads with a lot of data driven guys, because I get that a lot of that stuff matters, and it does give you like one side of the picture of it, but it's like you said, man, like Jalen Hyatt, that's red flag city for me, baby. Has like you said, like Josh Heupel offense, he's a speed guy running 2 route read system in the air raid. Like, it's this that this doesn't fly in the NFL. And then we have players that, like, it's proven now that when you're in the NFL, you've already known how to run routes. You're not learning how to run routes. Now you're just trying to refine your routes to help get open even faster in different ways, like using body fakes, stuff like that. So yeah, thank you for answering my question. That's just, and like I said, you guys have a resource that's even great for guys like me, because it's like you said, man, like there are so many different teams out there that you're like gonna miss guys,
Yeah, and just to add a point here on the wide receiver position, I think it's so important that we see wide receivers deployed downfield, because I don't know, I don't know that people know this, but a route could change based on what the coverage is. Like, if it's cover 3, the route is supposed to be straighter. If it's cover 2, then you're supposed to bend into between the middle, you're not supposed to pass the safeties. You're supposed to go underneath them. And those things are just where the quarterback and the wide receiver have to. Here's a common one. Here's a very, very common one. Anytime you see press coverage, oftentimes, and this is what we ran at Grand Valley, oftentimes that's like automatically converted to a go. Sometimes you will see a wide receiver get off the line on press coverage and then stop, and the quarterback has thrown the ball downfield, and they turn around and look at each other like this. That's what they're asking, like, didn't you see this? Like, we automatically do this. And so when I see a wide receiver who is only used around the line of scrimmage, I'm like, maybe they have a hard time figuring out if it's 1 high or 2 high and what they're supposed to do after the ball is snapped. That's the fear that I have, because that's how, there's no, like, it's not nobody's going to tell you this. You're supposed to know what your playbook is, and that the fact that you have an option to either keep that route straight or stop or bend it over the middle, what have you, and you have to know what you're supposed to do. And if you don't know how to read defenses, you ain't gonna know what to do. So that's why it's really important for me to see wide receivers deployed downfield, so I know that they know how to make those decisions. Somebody like Laviska Shenault, somebody like Rondale Moore, hasn't necessarily had to make those decisions in college. Doesn't mean that they can't. Just means that they were not asked to. Why were they not asked to? We don't always know that.
I love it, man. And now that we're into it, and I like this, I'm going to just throw the whole process stuff to the side. And we did touch on it a little bit. We opened the door for it. Who is your wide receiver 3 in Devy, C2C, what have you? Like, who is the guy that you would rank after Ibuka? Is it Evan Stewart?
I think I have Evan Stewart ranked number 2, and I have Barian Brown ranked number 3. Talked a little bit about Barian Brown. At the very least, we have one of the best kick returners in the country. I think that gives him a floor that's a little bit higher than other guys who just don't have a skill set. Like, at the very least, Barian Brown will be in the NFL as a kick returner. Now, he played excellent as a freshman, including against Georgia, one of the best defenses in the country. I think Evan Stewart is just like a well-rounded, safe technician at the position. He had one of his best games against Alabama and Quincy McKinstry, who many have up for the Jim Thorpe Award this year. So I'm pretty. I don't have my rankings in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it's Marvin Harrison number 1, Evan Stewart number 2, and Barry and Brown number 3. But in 2024, I love this year of college football because we lost so many players in 2023. The wide receiver class, running back class, quarterback. We lost a lot of established names. If you look at wide receiver, Quentin Johnston, Josh Downs, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zay Flowers. Like, there are all of these guys who are in our top 15 or so, and that we had seen for a number of years. The 2023 draft class wiped all of that out. And so now, in certain respects, we're starting from zero with guys we've only seen 1 year, guys we haven't seen play at all, guys who haven't been in primary roles, that sort of thing. And we're projecting those guys to take a jump this year. But, I mean, everybody is, because there's a bunch of players who haven't had significant playing time. And again, I go back to that being part of the challenge, is projecting these guys and seeing who's going to make it and planting your flag on guys. I mean, just one example is I was a big fan of Jameson Williams when he was the 5th wide receiver for Ohio State. Todd, you can back me up on that. You was there back in those days. I'm like, every time they need to play, they bring in this little skinny dude, the little 6'2" skinny dude to get a big play. Nobody else can seem to get it, even though they've got Chris Olave and Jackson Smith and Jigba and all these number 1 wide receivers. For some reason, when they need a big play, they bring in this other dude. Now, I don't know if Jameson Williams ever is going to make it, but like having calls like that when a guy is 5th on the depth chart, or, you know, I called out Zach Wilson being a first-round NFL draft pick before a lot of people did. Now, that didn't work out either. Ramondre Stevenson, one that did work out, you know. So making those calls really early is just a ton of fun.
Yeah, I think that's what makes C2C fun. Todd, I want to get you involved in this, man. You've been very quiet, very patient. And, you know, I want to know, at least you want to chime in and talk about maybe your wide receiver 3 of the class, or just touch on anything that Felix has talked about.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, like, when we were talking about the subjectiveness of the evaluating players and stuff, I think, like, to give Felix credit, he was one of the only people on Anthony Richardson last year. And way prior to that, I actually have the receipts from my first draft. I drafted him in the 19th round after listening to Felix. But when you look at, like, Twitter and draft Twitter and all these people they keep referring to as completion percentage and everything else, and all these reasons why he can't succeed in the NFL and why he's not going to get this draft capital. And even after you got the draft capital, now you're talking about he has the worst passing profile and whichever else. Nobody's talking about the receivers that he didn't have to play with, because there weren't any. The scheme he was in, the coaching system, not putting him in that position to succeed. And sometimes it just comes down to traits. And you have to be able to realize which traits are translatable and transferable to the NFL and beyond. And Felix was probably the leading voice in all Twitter and this space for Anthony Richardson, going back even to infighting on his own show with his own co-host all the time. And we still don't know if he's going to be successful in the NFL. We have no idea. But as playing in the C2C and like a couple years in, and you can't help but do your own player evaluations, or you're not, and at least some kind of analysis, or else you're just blindly taking off other people's rankings. That stuff kind of you find your own hit rates getting better, especially leading into the NFL. The dynasty aspect of it actually almost becomes easy when you start looking at kids from like the high school level and on. It's like secondary to you, because you're so in depth and ingrained with the player evaluation from early on. And for someone who like myself, who's starting to get into really watching these high school kids, it goes back to what Felix was saying about having to see these more from these receivers than just plays at the line of scrimmage and such. And I found that in 2 or 3 years of looking at high school prospects as a really big red flag of these kids at that level who are only getting those types of plays and out athleting people at that stage, when you know the athletes are going to get better every stage they go on. That it's a big red flag to see this kid's relying on only athleticism to win as a 17-year-old playing in North Carolina high school. It's hard to imagine him taking those strides going forward 3-4 years from now and winning that same way at the NFL level if he makes it that far.
Just to underscore that point, Todd, last year, the number 1 running back, either number 1 or number 2 running back, according to most services, was Emmanuel Henderson. Now, we're talking about the number one player at his position. We looked at Emmanuel Henderson's tape. It was like, this dude is not, first of all, he's not built like a running back. He's 6'2", 180 pounds or whatever it was. That's not running back size or running back frame. You look at his tape, he's being used on everything that's a jet sweep, everything to the outside. He was the number one player in his class, and I think we put him in our third tier when we said that this guy's not. I wrote the profile. I said this guy is not a running back. Oh, here we are in 2023, 1 year removed, and he's been moved to wide receiver because it's more. I mean, that's just that's better suited for that position. So yeah, I mean, I think that having the good calls is just as fun as saying fade this player, fade that player. You know, they don't have a future at this position, or maybe they're a good college player but not an NFL player, and making those projections from before they take their first college snap is really fun, especially when you get pushback from the community like we did about Emmanuel Henderson, but I don't hear anything about that now.
Yeah, there was a lot of pushback of like, what makes you guys think? And I remember on the show when people saying like, if he has a future, it probably as a slot wide receiver is where he's going to fit in, where he'd be most useful. And yeah, he didn't see a snap. I don't think he even played a snap last year.
He didn't play a snap last year, and he's been moved full time to from running back to wide receiver. So, and it's all. I mean, Mike and Jagger, even if you don't play campus to Canton, you know that a 6'2", 170-pound player doesn't sound like a running. That doesn't sound like a running back to you. I mean, fantasy players play this game enough where they know instinctively what makes sense and what doesn't really seem to sound right. There was another. That was 2 years. Was that 2 years ago? So last year's class was Raleek Brown. Raleek Brown is another running back. You know, he's the opposite. He's like 5'8". You know, the 160 pounds or whatever it was. We're like, that's not a running back either. And now he's also switched to wide receiver. But I mean, me and Todd know this instinctively because we watch these guys. Mike and Jagger, if you did, you would come to the same conclusions on some of these guys using those instincts that you developed playing the game.
Yeah, I play C2C. Go ahead, Jagger. Sorry.
I was about to say I don't play, but I know. Like Raleek Brown, that 100% your like profile. It's like you said, man. Like a big whiff for me after I got his and this is now he's in the NFL, but after I got his actual measurements was Dwayne McBride. You can't be a ground and pound tough grinder back that's kind of a plotter if you're 209 pounds. If you're 215, then we can talk. 220 is better, but it's stuff like that. You know, it's like you said, it's like that's when the data is pretty accurate when it comes to size or whatnot. I'm still interested to see what happens with Deuce Vaughn and Tank Dell. So
yeah. Sorry, I didn't know I was muted there. Yeah, I'm in a few C2C leagues. I'm definitely not as deep into it as you guys though. And you know, that's why I rely on some trusted. I can't go watch high school ball. You know, I can't. I have not gotten super deep into the G5 and everything, but you know, I trust certain people to do that for me until I have the time to actually get in there myself and do it myself. But before we get into some listener questions, the last 10 minutes, I just want to talk to you about your C2C strategy, you know, because I like to go like young, like I want to go like Devi assets early and then get all my producers later in the draft. I was told by Todd that that's kind of your go-to strategy as well. I was wondering if you could kind of, or maybe you don't. I don't know. Maybe I misread that, but I don't know. What's your go-to strategy when it comes to like a Devi or a C2C startup?
I mean, the general strategy for most people is that I would say for 75, 80% of people take those guys who we have clarity about their NFL future. We take those guys up front. Now, you can be in a league where you get thrown for a loop where they just take the biggest college producers right up there at the start of the draft in the first couple of rounds. And then you're like, oh, shoot, now I got to catch up. I'm playing catch up with this guy. But at the same time, they're playing catch up with you on the NFL side because they're not drafting a whole bunch of NFL producers. But as far as strategy goes, that's generally the strategy, is that you take your NFL players in the first, 5 to 10 rounds, whatever you want to say. Now, and then you switch to guys who just produce on the college, or on the college side, CFF guys, those G5 guys. Now, there are lots of players that fit both molds. Somebody like Xavier Worthy, who a lot of people have as being a potential NFL first round wide receiver out of Texas. He fits both. I mean, he's going to score sufficiently enough on the college side and get projected draft capital where he fits both. Somebody like Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a wide receiver 1. He's going to be a top 5 NFL draft pick. Same for Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, you can start every week on the college side. But then there are players like I'm trying to think of like a pure drop back passer who doesn't run the ball. Somebody like so Drew Aller at Penn State is a player that a lot of us have very high hopes for. Like Josh Allen is his comp. Well, one, we kind of expect in his first year as a starter that Drew Aller, that offense is going to be well balanced. He has some deficiencies at wide receiver. And, he's probably not a guy that you're going to start every week or at all on the college side of your campus to canton leagues. So you can go get somebody who plays for Hawaii or Fresno State or, some smaller G5 school, and they'll score more points, be more productive. But Drew Aller is still being taken in the first round of startup draft. So I would say, generally speaking, that's my strategy. It's no real secret or anything like that. It's the same as anyone else's. I'm trying to get those NFL guys up front. Now, the difference in my strategy is I might have a different approach on what an NFL guy was. 2.5 years ago when I was in mock drafts, Anthony Richardson was one of those guys I was taking in the 15th, between rounds 15 and 20. Like, this is an NFL guy. Mayan Williams at Ohio State, a thick running back who looks very similar to Ramondre Stevenson, in my opinion. I was taking him even later than that, So Colston Loveland, a tight end at Michigan this year, those are guys that I'm taking late. So my perspective on what an NFL player is probably a slightly different. Carson Beck at Georgia, very high on Carson Beck at Georgia. He's a drop back passer, but I think he's going to be an efficient downfield thrower, similar to what C.J. Stroud was at Ohio State. I think that he has an NFL future. So my strategy is probably the same as 99% of people, but my perspective on what is an NFL player, what guys have the traits to be an NFL player, that's probably different.
Yeah. And so after week 0, do Zachariah Branch and like Jaden Greathouse move at all for you as far as where you're going to take them? Or is that just like a reactionary move on most people's part?
I mean, I haven't seen Zachariah Branch fall out like the 3rd round of a startup. I mean, we already kind of knew he was ranked at number 9 in my wide receiver rankings. I'm not going to move him up to 8 or whatever. Jaden Greathouse is also probably in my top 25 or so. I'm not going to move him. I know that the general college football community is just like watching these guys, but we've been talking to have the same conversation since before we dropped the freshman guide about these players. I think I even said I actually wrote up Zachariah Branch's profile for the freshman guide. I said 2 things of significance in that. I comped his 100-meter dash time to Jalen Waddle, DK Metcalf, Nick Singleton, Tyreek Hill, just to give you a range of where he is speed-wise. But I also said that this guy is a guy who at Bishop Gorman in Nevada, Bishop Gorman, one of the high school powerhouses in the country, he just had this habit of letting punts drop before he picked them up to take them back. And I know why he did that, because like catching that punt, looking up while the gunners are coming at you, it can be a scary thing. Letting it bounce off the ground feels safer. Anyway, college special teams coaches just don't let you do that because they don't want you losing field position. And lo and behold, we get to week 0, he caught all of his punts. So I mean, we've known these Jaden Greathouse. I mean, we're going to see Dante Moore at some point this year. We're going to see Jonte Cook at Texas. We're going to see Deuce Robinson, another one at UCLA or at USC who played well this year. I mean, my rankings will change when somebody does something that surprises me or when, another player kind of faults in front of them. But Zachariah Branch was already, I just looked at my rankings. He was already number 9. I moved him up in my C200 rankings, which is our cornerstone rankings, which is combined NFL and college. So I moved him up like 10 spots there, up above guys like Traylon Burks and above Josh Downs. But he was already in my top 100 in my C200 rankings, and he was already number 9 in my college wide receiver rankings. So he's going to, unless somebody does something in front of him that just – it's terrible, he's probably going to stay at number 9 for a little while.
Gotcha. You have time for a couple listener questions? Bang these out real quick, and then I know you're hopping on with Matt in a little bit. I know I might know the answer to this first one, but the first question we have is, who is your sleeper QB for this year? And can I answer for you? You just said his name. I mean, it's got to be Carson Beck, no?
Carson Beck is definitely one of them. And I'm trying to see if I have another one that I got. So there are a couple of I'm high on Malik Murphy. Quinn Ewers backup down there at Texas. I am high on the 2 freshmen, Lenoris Sellers. If there's going to be a next Anthony Richardson, I think Lenoris Sellers at South Carolina is a candidate. Not only is he a candidate to be the next Anthony Richardson, but stylistically, he wears glasses underneath his helmet. The country's going to fall in love with that kid, given his play style and the fact that he's wearing he looks like a character from Remember the Titans. So I think the country's going to fall in love with him. Aiden Childs at Oregon State, another freshman. I'm trying to see if there's an upperclassman that I'm really, really high on. I can't. Here we go. I'll give you he's not going to start this year, but Thomas Castellanos at Boston College, a guy a dual threat who's very fun to watch, runs all around, gives you some of that Russell Wilson backyard feel. I really like him. So, there are a couple of names there to pay attention to as far as quarterbacks that I like.
Nice. So Noah actually dropped a question on here. He said that you were in on Ramondre Stevenson long before anybody. Can you drop a couple running backs that you think fit the mold that could take the leap?
Yeah, I already mentioned Mayan Williams. He was a 3-star prospect who, a lot of folks didn't see starting at Ohio State, given how many 5 stars that they had there. So I think that he definitely qualifies. I want to like Trey Sanders at TCU. If you don't know Trey Sanders' story, I think he's a 4th or 5th year player who's never really gotten to play because he's been injured, and he had a really bad car accident last year at Alabama, and so he is back. He's healthy. He's transferred to TCU. I don't know if he's an NFL player, but his value was such that he was just a guy that I had to pick up in my startups this year. The problem is that I talk too much on the front end of these things, and I give the answers, which don't really change all that much. I mean, if I had to say this guy's the next kind of Ramondre guy who's going to get taken on day 3 and then have some real value in the NFL, I would think it would be Mayan Williams for me.
Cool. Yeah, I own a lot of Mayan Williams actually, so I like that answer a lot. So from Vince over here, he said, in an ideal world, how does C2C look 5 to 10 years from now? And what are some of your personal suggestions for how the platform can become more accessible and mainstream?
In 5 years from now, Sleeper, ESPN, CBS will all have college fantasy, is just a standard option that you could choose that you want to play. I think that's really that's how we get to growth. Now, college fantasy is growing, exponentially. We keep having, as far as subscribers and audience and all of the numbers, the objective numbers, as far as what we're doing at Campus to Can, we see those numbers increase, every single month. Like if you compare August of 2023 to August of 2022, we did better than 2022. I mean, every month we're doing better and better, which means that people are gravitating to what it is that we're doing. I think that so my hope would be in 5 to 10 years we see that the platforms have taken a jump and there are more options available other than just Fantrax. As far as what we're doing, I honestly believe that we just need to keep doing the same thing and just keep getting just a little bit better. I mean, our little bit better in 5 to 10 years from now will probably be another redesign of the website where we have that sleek Fantasy Pros, DLF, ESPN look. But those, I mean, we've priced those websites and they are expensive. Dynasty Nerds, another one where, but yeah, that's where we would be. I mean, there are certain things that, just for example, we have depth charts for 133 FBS teams. We have statistical projections. We have projected spreads. We have team profiles for 133 FBS teams. Some of that data is just on a spreadsheet. So you sign up to the website for that package, you get access to a spreadsheet. We want that stuff on the website. So there's one place that you have to go. It's just that from a cost and feasibility perspective, we just didn't have enough to actually build that out this year. So when we talk about the future, the future will be, you don't have to go to a spreadsheet to look at the depth chart for Jacksonville State if you want to. You just go to campscan.com, click on depth chart, scroll down to Jacksonville State and say, all right, who's the left tackle for them? Oh, okay. And then you keep on going with your day. So that will be the hope. Just little things like that, just making us, more round, or just trying to keep making the sphere rounder and rounder.
Yeah, we appreciate what you do for the C2C space. I know that you're an advocate for growing it. Like I said before, earlier in the pod, you're always out there trying to help people with whatever they need, whether it's trade questions, whether it's startup or just general value questions and all that good stuff. So like I said, we appreciate you in the space. We appreciate what you do, and we're trying to grow the space as well. So I'd love to see it more mainstream. I love to see like the platform change from Fantrax and all that. But I think, it's steadily, at least from what I've seen since I started, there's a lot of growth. So I think, that's trending in the right direction. Todd, do you have anything that you want to talk to Felix about or ask him about before we launch out of here?
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering, when you guys started to really grow and boom, I remember last offseason mostly was new team members coming on constantly. Was there in-house talk of debating on which people to collaborate with versus bringing them on to the team full time? Because it seems like anyone kind of making ripples in the space, all of a sudden they're just all part of the team all at once. It was day after day after day.
Well, if you notice, I mean, what we did, I feel like between 2022 and 2023, we did add a lot of team members, and it was all who adds value. So we've never been a site to put up a sign, say, hey, we're hiring. Do you want to write for us? We've went and actively recruited folks that we thought could actually add value. And believe it or not, we've been told no multiple times from people who ended up so Big Wide Receiver Guy is a good example. And if you don't know Big Wide Receiver Guy, I mean, he gathers the data that becomes our athletic comparison tool. He does a lot of our recruiting stuff, the prospect charting, that sort of stuff. We were recruiting him and he told us no at first. And we said, well, let's meet with you, and we talked to him again and tried to bring him on. And he told us no. And then, a few weeks or maybe a month or later or so, he ended up coming on with us. So it's something that we say in the Slack all the time, in our founders Slack, is make them tell you no. Make them tell you no. So whenever we are saying, hey, should we go out and get this person or make this request, we're and you guys say that we've blown up. I don't know that we have, to be honest with you, Todd. I think that we're still in the middle of it. We aren't there yet. But one of our philosophies is to just go for it. And the worst thing that could happen is that it fails or somebody tells you no and you just, start all over the next day.
Yeah. Yeah, like we said, we appreciate you coming on. We appreciate you sharing your startup story, and look forward to kind of working with you guys in the future, especially with the Dynasty Degens. I'd love to, get on pods with you guys, talk, player values and week recaps and all that good stuff in the near future. But is there anything that you have coming up, Felix, that you want to drop, or anything that you want to plug on here before we sign off?
If you're listening to this and you don't pay attention to college football, start this year. You can start on Saturday mornings with us at 10 a.m. from 10 to 12. We've got the tailgate that is produced by Better Sports this year. So it's something that we've been doing the last 2 years. This year we get actual production value. So we're talking about the spreads. We're talking about our top 30 quarterbacks projected for that week. Just like your normal NFL fantasy show, come join us on our YouTube page, Campus to Canton on YouTube. The Saturday morning show is really a lot of fun, and start there and go ahead and if you do like what it is that you hear, then jump on the Campus to Canton podcast feed. There's so much stuff that we do, it's just free content. And if you like talking about college football or players or projecting players to the NFL, then I think that you will enjoy what the discussions that we have every single day. We have a podcast every single day. We have the Saturday morning shows, the Saturday morning show, and hopefully this week, the Saturday evening show. I did not get it in week 0, but hopefully we'll get it here in week 1. But yeah, just kind of follow us and see where we end up being, in 5 to 10 years. I have no idea, but we're going to keep taking actions to keep growing the space and doing our part to provide value to our customers.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Felix. Like I said, we appreciate you. That's Felix Sharpe at Sharpe Review on Twitter, and you can go check them out at Campus to Canton. Definitely check out their website, their podcast, all that good stuff. Todd, you want to drop anything? You have anything coming up that you want everyone to listen to or hear about?
Yeah, just check out the Dynasty Degens podcast that we just started with Noah Green. We just had our first episode drop yesterday. So there's 2 of us, both pretty new to the whole podcasting scene, but we're doing our best to keep you guys informed on Devi and C2C and talking all kind of stuff. And just to add to Felix, for Campus Kent guys, even if you don't play the format, Campus Kent has something for everyone. They just college football fans in general, betting, any type of content that way, even if you don't even play in the format. So, and also to get into the format, I think it's not as overwhelming as people would think. Like the information is out there to even to compete, and even just think of it as just expanding your knowledge on the dynasty side. You still have a whole dynasty league to play on top of. You can still win a dynasty championship without knowing anything about the college side. You can learn on the fly. So yeah, just jump in head first. It's the best way to go.
Yeah, that's Todd Vincent at Hobart_Whipple. And like he just said, the Dynasty Degens dropped their first episode yesterday. It's a new pod, new guys on there. And like a new pod, they're just kind of finding their way. But it's great content and it's very actionable content. So if you haven't checked that out, go on and take a listen. Next week, we have Nino Brown on from Toilets to Titles. So we're going to be talking about Devi prospects and go over some rankings and all that good stuff. But I appreciate everybody listening. One more thanks to Felix Sharpe, and we will see you next week.
Yeah, the revolution, y'all. Yep, the revolution.
The revolution, y'all, will not be televised.
Yeah, you gotta wake up, open your eyes,
Make a change in your life,
and find a new way of living.
It's time to start living for the children.
Everybody look into my life, tell me what you see. The perseverance of a young man sitting is so free. LA Mac, be the champ, but still fighting the struggle. They couldn't shut my mouth.